Imagine this. Picture yourself as this young woman, and try to put yourself in her place. You're 20 years old. You've been engaged to your high school sweetheart, the guy you've been with since you were 15. That's 5.5 years together. It's the end of the fall semester in 2017. You're attending a university in the next county over, but you won't be graduating until the spring of 2018. Finals are just around the corner, set for next week. He's at a state college up north, where he's just finishing up his 2-year degree. Today, on a Saturday, is his graduation ceremony. He's set to start his new job first thing Monday morning, all the way down in the southernmost part of the state. Next week, the two of you have plans to head down there together to pick out your first place, a house or an apartment to call your own. For your last semester, you've already planned your class schedule. You'll only have to be on campus Monday through Wednesday, making it easier to spend most of the week with him. There's even a dog in the picture. The rescue shelter where you volunteer agreed to hold on to your favorite pup until the end of the year so you could adopt him together. Everything seems perfect. It's all falling into place. You've worked so hard for this future, and now it's finally within reach. That evening, after his big graduation day, the two of you are lying in bed. And then he says it. I don't think I'm happy anymore. At first, you can't even process the words. You sit there, stunned, before finally asking him what he means. Why does he feel this way? His answer? It's you. You're the reason. What started as one of the happiest days of your life has suddenly turned into your worst nightmare. The rest of the weekend, you're in a fog, trying to make sense of what just happened. You're crying nonstop, trembling, barely able to believe this is real. He's crying too, or at least it looks like he is. There are no actual tears, just him sitting there with his face buried in his hands. You asked him question after question, desperate for an explanation. But he rolls his eyes at you, sighing as if he's annoyed. He can't seem to give you a straight answer. He just sits there, watching you cry, and you can't help but feel like he's waiting for something. It's uncomfortable, almost like he's studying your reaction, and it only adds to the ache in your chest. You try to convince yourself it's nothing serious. Maybe you're just coming down with something. But deep down, you know it's more than that. Later, when he finally decides to talk, you're completely unprepared for what he says. He brings up things that upset him, things you don't even remember doing. He dredges up old arguments, the ones you thought you'd both moved past. He points out times when you couldn't give him what he wanted, even when those situations were out of your control. He lists mistakes you made that he swore he'd forgiven, but now he says he hasn't. Suddenly, it's like everything you've ever done has become ammunition against you. You sit there, stunned, looking at him like he's a stranger. The way he stares at you, it's not love anymore. It's something cold, like he's barely tolerating your presence. You want to scream, to yell at him for blindsiding you like this. But instead you stay quiet. He's upset, after all. You're already in tears. You don't want to make things worse by losing your temper. Your chest feels tight, and your vision's a blur. You thought you were doing everything right, that you were keeping him happy. But now you see how wrong you were. You feel like a failure. By Sunday evening, it's time for him to leave for his new job. He's got a hotel booked for the first week until the two of you can find a place together. He's standing by the door, waiting. Normally, this is when you'd hug him, kiss him, and wish him well. But this time, all you can do is hope. You hope he'll turn around, smile, and rush back to hold you tighter than ever. You need him to say he's sorry, to tell you he loves you and that everything's going to be okay. You've never been so scared in your life. Instead, when you look into his eyes, all you see is someone you barely recognize. The warmth you once found there is gone, replaced by a coldness that cuts straight to your heart. You break down, sobbing, unable to stop. He snaps at you. What's it going to take to make this better? His tone makes your blood boil. How can he act like he doesn't understand why you're upset? Through your tears, you tell him exactly what you need. I need you to stop acting like you don't love me anymore. I need you to promise me that I have nothing to worry about. He looks at you like you've just said something ridiculous. I'm not promising you anything. he says. You feel like the ground's been ripped out from under you. You collapse onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably, while he just stands there, scrolling through his phone like nothing's wrong. He watches you cry, and you can't help but wonder, how did it come to this? How can the person who once loved you so deeply now just stand there, unmoved by your pain? Finally, you tell him to go. He hesitates for a moment, then asks, "Well, don't I at least get a kiss?" You force yourself to stand, trembling as you drag your exhausted body over to him. The thought crosses your mind, he should have come to you. But no, he made you come to him, like it was something you owed him, something you should have done without needing to be asked. Barely able to keep your voice steady, you ask, "What should I tell your mom if she wants to go dress shopping for the wedding?" He shrugs, his answer as indifferent as it is infuriating. "I don't know." Then, he glances at you, waiting, watching to see how you'll react. Why is he so hyper-focused on your every move now? You're shattered, angry, and confused. What is there to figure out? Your pain is written all over your face, and yet he keeps studying you, like he's testing something. Before walking out the door, he shoots you one last disgusted look, rolling his eyes as if you're some kind of burden. Your chest feels like it's about to explode, and you know now, it's not because you're sick. You're devastated, heartbroken beyond words. But on top of that, there's this simmering rage inside you. How could he do this to you now, of all times? Finals are just days away. Couldn't he have waited until after they were over? But no, you can't dwell on that. Fighting with him won't help anything. The only battle you feel you can fight right now is to hold on to him, not push him further away. Then comes the guilt. You feel terrible for being mad at him. If this was bothering him so much, he must have been carrying it around for a while, and that's on you, isn't it? You keep replaying the moment when he asked how to make things better, and all you did was snap at him. That was a considerate question, wasn't it? And you ruined it. The blame settles heavily on your shoulders. This is your fault. If you'd been better, done more, loved him harder, he wouldn't have felt the need to bring this up. You convince yourself that he's been bottling up these emotions for your sake, just to keep you happy. And now, finally, he couldn't hold them in anymore. You decide you have to fix this. Be strong. Be the person he needs. The person who can weather this storm and show him that you can handle conflict, that you can be his peace when everything else is chaos. But your body betrays you. Each breath is a struggle, sharp and painful like barbed wire wrapping tighter around your chest and neck. Your face feels drained of color, and your heartbeat pounds so loudly you hear it echoing in your ears. The dizziness won't stop, your legs tremble so much you have to lean against the wall just to stay upright. The physical pain is overwhelming, and for a fleeting, terrifying moment you think, I can't live like this. Maybe it would be better if it all just stopped. And that thought horrifies you. How did it come to this? How did the person you love reduce you to this? By the time Monday rolls around, it feels like years have passed. The hours between Saturday night and now were the longest of your life. The idea of someone taking their own life suddenly doesn't seem so incomprehensible anymore, and that realization scares you even more. You're clinging to your sanity by a thread, wondering how much longer you can hold on. Your phone becomes your lifeline, and you check it constantly, hoping, praying, that he'll text or call. All you want is to hear him say he loves you, that everything will be okay. You try to escape your thoughts by heading to the library to study for finals, but the change of scenery doesn't help. The pain follows you everywhere. Your chest feels like it's caving in, and tears keep slipping out no matter how hard you try to hold them back. Your breathing is labored, loud enough for people around you to notice. You hear whispers, see their concerned glances, and realize just how far gone you are. There's no hiding it anymore. You push through your finals, doing your best to focus despite the chaos inside you. When it's all over, the short walk to your car feels like a marathon. Every step is a struggle, and by the time you reach it, you collapse into the seat, gasping for air. You break down again, tears streaming as you sit there, unable to drive. The pain is relentless, and you're desperate for relief, any relief. When you finally start driving, your mind drifts. The thoughts come unbidden, pulling you deeper into yourself. He's the source of your pain, but at the same time, he's the only one who can make it stop. His words, his actions, they're tearing you apart, controlling your every emotion. And worst of all, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's using that power against you. The idea of spending forever with him, marrying him, suddenly feels like a nightmare. You can't help but think, even if he called right now to apologize, said he loves you, and promised everything would be okay, it wouldn't matter. Not anymore. He's been deliberately hurting you, and during one of the most stressful weeks of your life, no less. How could you ever forgive him for making you feel so worthless? But you can't let yourself dwell on these thoughts for too long. Every time they surface, you push them down. You tell yourself you're overreacting, taking things too personally. After all, he told you not to worry about it, didn't he? That should have been enough. Instead, you feel ashamed for making this about your pain when you should be comforting him. You keep scolding yourself, you're being weak. You're being selfish. What kind of partner are you if you can't even make him feel better? By Monday night, your phone buzzes with a text from him. He wants to talk. The message sends your heart racing, torn between hope and dread. When the call comes, it's over before you even process what's happening. The only words that stick in your mind are, "I can't do this anymore." A searing pain shoots through your entire body, leaving you paralyzed. It feels like all your strength, your will, your very soul is ripped away in an instant. For a moment, you can't hear anything, then you realize it's because you've been holding your breath. Your body reacts on its own, gasping, trembling uncontrollably. Somehow you manage to hang up. Your voice is shredded from crying, but the tears won't come anymore. You're too exhausted, too drained to cry any longer. And strangely, something shifts. Breathing feels easier now, like someone finally cut the wires strangling your lungs and throat. It's as if the grip he had on you has loosened, at least a little. You realize you're starving. When was the last time you ate? You wander into the kitchen, grabbing whatever food you can find. As you eat, the strength slowly returns to your body, piece by piece. It's like coming back to life after being dead. Your parents are outraged when they find out. Their disbelief quickly turns to suspicion. They're convinced he must have been cheating on you. But you shut that down immediately. You know he wouldn't do that. He's not that kind of person. This has to be your fault. You tell yourself he left because you weren't good enough. You weren't lovable enough. Maybe he stayed with you all these years out of pity, and when it came time to move forward into a real future together, he couldn't bring himself to tie his life to someone as flawed and insufferable as you. The shame is suffocating. You hate yourself for not understanding why this happened. You feel disgusted, humiliated, and utterly worthless. In an effort to salvage something, you try to bring the dog you'd planned to adopt to your parents' house. They already have a full house of pets, dogs and cats, but they can't bear to say no to you, not after everything you've been through. The shelter warned you he needed to be the only pet in the home. He doesn't get along with other animals. But you'd spent so much time with him, imagining him as part of your new life. You couldn't let him go, not after looking forward to bringing him home for so long. Against your better judgment, you bring him home. It's a disaster. He attacks one of the cats, and a fight breaks out. By the time you separate them, his face is scratched and bleeding. Heartbroken, you take him back to the shelter. The staff isn't happy. You broke the adoption agreement, and now the dog is injured. The tension is unbearable, and you decide to stop volunteering there altogether. It ends on bad terms, a bitter final chapter to what was once a source of joy. My faith in everything, myself, him, love, was crumbling. That week, I had to go to Albuquerque for the bull game with the marching band. It was the last event I'd ever have with them, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of it. After this, there was nothing left. Nothing to look forward to. It felt like everything that once made me happy was slipping away, leaving behind an empty shell of a life. And the only person to blame? Me. He was still on my mind constantly. I kept thinking about messaging him, telling him I'd always love him, that I was sorry, and thanking him for all the years we spent together. But after a lot of back and forth, I decided not to bother him. When my mom picked me up after the trip, she had news. Big news. She and my dad had found out there was another girl. That's all they knew, no details, no names. I was shocked for a moment, but it didn't hit me the way it should have. I was too exhausted to feel anything at that point. A week or so later, someone pieced together who she was. I remembered him mentioning her a couple of times before. And still, I didn't care. I was numb, drained. But then, slowly, something in me shifted. The fury started to build. Betrayal has a way of creeping in, and when it finally hit, it hit hard. I couldn't stop replaying everything in my mind, picking apart every detail. I realized he'd made sure to be somewhere far away when he called me to end things. He didn't have the courage to face me in person. He couldn't even handle looking anyone in the eye. Instead, he ran away and hid. And why couldn't he just admit he cheated? Why not break the engagement with some semblance of dignity? No. Instead, he dragged it out, torturing me, hoping I'd snap and end it myself. If the roles had been reversed, if I'd been the one unfaithful, I know what I would have done. I would have confessed, told him the truth. I'd have ended the engagement myself, not because I wanted to, but because I know he deserved better than me. That's what love is, letting someone go when you know you've wronged them beyond repair. But that wasn't him. No, he made me swallow every ounce of pride I had left, made me beg for him, knowing full well his decision was already made. And for what? Did it give him some kind of sick satisfaction to see me cry, to watch me grovel? Did it make him feel powerful, knowing he could crush me with a single word? I spent years bending over backward to make him happy. I wanted his happiness more than I ever wanted my own. I changed myself 1,000 times over, hoping that maybe, just maybe, one version of me would be enough for him. And what did he do? He chewed it up and spat it back in my face while I lay there bleeding, because of him. He saw how broken I was. He knew I wasn't okay. He could see it in my lifeless face, in the way I couldn't even catch my breath. He knew I was on the edge, and he didn't care. He left me there, drowning in guilt and pain, like I was nothing but an inconvenience. He weaponized everything he knew about me, my mistakes, my insecurities, my fears, and used them to cut me down. Every word was a bullet aimed to kill. And then, like a light bulb flickering on in the dark, it hit me. He wouldn't have said the things he said or done what he did if he thought I'd just walk away on my own terms. No, he wanted to control the story. He didn't want me to have the power to tell people the truth. I couldn't believe it at first. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. He wanted me to take my own life. And when he realized I wouldn't do it, he got scared. That's when I finally admitted the truth to myself. He never cared about me. He was never capable of it. He's an egomaniac, a narcissist. He needs admiration like air, craves attention, and sees everyone else as beneath him. He wanted me gone so he could be the grieving boyfriend, the poor victim everyone comforted. He knew my family well enough to know they'd still love him, still consider him part of the family. They'd probably tell him to move on, to find someone new. That way, he could start his relationship with her while wearing the mask of a heartbroken man. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine realizing you gave the best years of your life to someone who never loved you? Someone who saw you as nothing more than a stepping stone to his next conquest? Imagine the embarrassment of replaying every moment, every red flag you ignored, wondering why you stayed so long. Imagine the rage of knowing he left you to believe this was all your fault, that he wanted you to carry that guilt for the rest of your life. And imagine the pain of knowing his way of thanking you for all those years was to push you to the brink, and then walk away without a second thought. I would have died for him. And he said, "Of course you would. Now prove it."